Welcome. Hello, everyone, to our October 2025 charity catch-up event. It feels odd that we're in October. I've been told it's only 84 days until Christmas, which obviously none of us enjoy hearing. So whether you're here for the first time or you are a regular, you are very welcome. My name is Josh Kingston. I'm one of the partners at Burton Suite, and it is my pleasure to introduce Ed Marsh, our Senior Charity Advisor, and also our special guest speaker, Rachel Barfoot, the Chief Operating Officer and Community Sector Lead for Delegated Services CIC. The plan for our event today is that Ed will be speaking to us on recruiting and inducting trustees. Then Rachel will be speaking on what are you doing to respond to Martin's Law. We finish off with some key sector updates and an opportunity for questions, and we're hoping to conclude on or about 1 p.m. Just at the bottom of your screen, there's a button which says chat on it. So please do that chat, use that chat function at any point during the event to ask questions or to comment on the content. We do love it when we have a good back and forth between people on there. And we'll be picking up on any questions at the end of our time together. Captions are enabled on this event, so you can turn those on by selecting that option on the menu bar below too. These are automatically generated, but hopefully still helpful to those who would like to use them. You'll have seen a little message pop up, which just supports the fact that this event is recorded, but do note that no delegate faces or names will be on the recording. Hopefully later today, we'll be sending out an email with a link to the recording and a copy of the slides. We'd also be grateful if you could please reply to that email with any feedback that you may have about the event, the speakers, or any topics you'd like to hear from us in the future. That would be fantastic. I will now hand over to Ed to kick us off. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks so much, Josh. Great to see everybody. Thanks so much for being with us. It's great to have such a big crowd along to the event today, and we really hope that you find it helpful. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to you about refreshed Charity Commission guidance. The Charity Commission are on a bit of a drive to refresh and simplify and make much clearer all of the guidance they have, which is actually very good guidance. And this guidance was refreshed back in May 2025, just at the start of the summer, on finding and appointing new trustees. But first of all, I'm just going to ask for a little bit of input. We're going to have a little quiz, a little poll, and really asking you the question: is your charity on the lookout for one or more new trustees? And there's going to be a few different options here. Not at the moment, or perhaps, and you can answer more than one here. Not at the moment. Yes, we have vacancies on the board, or yes, we're expecting vacancies soon, or yes, we need to increase the number of trustees on our board, or perhaps we're lacking specific skills or experience. Maybe you're a brand new charity or just about to register a charity and you think, oh, we really need to get trustees on board. Maybe that's the boat that you're in. So thanks. You can answer more than one of these things. And we'll just have a look. Thank you. We've got lots of great responses already. Yeah, I'm just going to wait another moment before I share those results with you. So just another few seconds. Lovely. Well, thank you for taking part in that. I'm going to share the results with you. You can see that we see about 11 out of 61 people who answered said not at the moment and not looking for new trustees, which presumably means the rest of you are looking for new trustees. Some of you looking because there are vacancies on your board. It seems to be the case that the vast majority of boards in England and Wales do have at least one vacancy on it. And so it's interesting that that's reflected as well. Many boards have vacancies. Perhaps it's because you're preparing for future vacancies or vacancies that are imminent. There's a need. Many of you are recognizing that you lack specific skills and experience on your boards as well. And so thank you for that. That's really helpful to get an idea of kind of who's on the call here and what your needs are. So we are going to have a little think about this topic together. This refreshed guidance CC30, it recognises, it's important guidance because it recognises that trustees play an absolutely critical role in the charity sector. It's important to recognise that that role is almost entirely a voluntary role in the sector. And so recruiting volunteers is always a big deal and quite a challenge. But what is, of course, important to recognise is that trustees, without trustees, the charity sector just wouldn't be there. Without the work of trustees, without their experience and expertise and skill and the time, the commitment they give, then the charity sector just wouldn't be doing all the good that it's doing in society. And so this is a really important topic for us to think about, is to get the right people on the bus and involved. And it's the reality and it's our desire that people from all walks of life, that they have valuable skills and experience that they can offer charities. And we believe that charities will be enhanced by having people from all walks of life and by bringing all kinds of different skills and experience. And what the Charity Commission are aiming to do with this guidance is to help charities, one, to think a bit more broadly about who could be a trustee and who they could recruit as a trustee on their board. Consistently, research shows that trustees often fit a particular kind of mold or demographic. I think the average age of trustees in England and Wales is 57 or something like that. The vast majority are male. And also, the Charity Commission want to be improving the processes by which charities recruit and induct new trustees. Pro Bono Economics, which is a think tank, it did a bit of research and found that only 6% of trustees applied for their role in response to an advert. Only 6% applied for their role in response to an advert. And that most charities relied very much on personal contacts to recruit new trustees. It found that 29% of trustees were actually asked to be a trustee by the current chair of the charity. That similarly, around about 25% were actually asked directly by another board member. There's nothing inherently wrong in that. Personal contacts are great. Word of mouth is fantastic, but that does have some limitations if we are going to see people from all walks of life that have valuable skills and experience to offer. And so this guidance aims to address that and to broaden that thinking out further. But firstly, it's important to recognise that we can get a bit confused by terminology. Different charities often use different language when they refer to trustees. You might, in your context, or you might have heard other charities refer to trustees as directors, or perhaps a council of management, or the members of the PCC, governors or committee members or managing trustees. And really, we're going to, in this guidance and in this session, we're going to be talking about trustees. And really what we are doing in that term trustees is encompassing all of these different terms, all of these different kind of ways that might be particularly traditional or common in your particular setting. Your governing document will refer to who your trustees are, and it might call them one of these things. So it's just worth being aware of that. But as we're thinking about recruiting new trustees, the fundamental starting point is this, that we need to understand and follow our governing documents when it comes to the recruitment of trustees. It's vital to do that, because unless we do that, we might end up in situations where trustees are not validly appointed, and that jeopardizes the decision making of the charity, and it jeopardizes the legality of what we're up to. So what are the things that you need to be looking out for in your governing document? You need to be looking out for, is there a minimum or a maximum board size that our governing document allows for? Not all governing documents include these stipulations, but do look out for those. It's important to comply with those where they are there. If you don't have those, really, charity law very much expects that you will have a minimum of 3 trustees. But of course, the challenge is, if you only have 3 trustees, it doesn't leave an awful lot of wiggle room, doesn't leave a lot of room for manoeuvre. And so be thinking about that. It also perhaps talks in your governing document about quorum. In other words, what percentage or number of trustees need to be present in a trustees meeting to enable valid decisions to be made? That might be expressed as a number, it might be a percentage, but just do bear that in mind when you're thinking about, do we need to recruit and who do we need to recruit? Uh, your governing document also might talk about how long trustees can be in post. It might have terms of service. It might say that trustees can serve for a certain number of years, and there are limited numbers of terms that trustees can serve for. The Charity Governance Code recommends as best practice that there are terms of service in place, and so, but that's not the case for everybody. So do understand what your governing document says, because that's vital. You need to understand whether there are any restrictions on who is eligible to be a trustee of your particular charity. Some charities might have a stipulation that trustees need to live in a certain area or a particular region, or be a member of a particular religion by virtue of the particular work the charity is doing. So do look out for those in your governing document. Who is it that may appoint or elect some or all trustees? So, for example, some trustees have a wider membership, and sometimes that wider membership are the ones that have the right to elect new trustees into the post. Other charities, it will be the trustees who have the responsibility to appoint, and there are particular provisions around that. It might be, in some cases, that there are ex officio trustees. In other words, people who are trustees by definition of holding a particular role or a particular office. So do understand whether that is in place for your charity. And finally, what is the process that you must follow to appoint new trustees? You need to make sure you follow that process that is in your governing document. And finally, I guess the comment would be, it might be you look at your governing document, you think, oh my goodness me, this is outdated. This is nowhere near what you need it to be. It is possible to embark on a proper process of changing your governing document to modernize its structure and its provisions. And we'd love you to come and chat to us about, kickstarting that process if that's something you feel you really need to do to be able to kind of to give you more flexibility. As you're thinking about trustee recruitment, think about what your charity needs. Now, I would say this is something that charities need to be doing all the time. This is not something to wait until you've got a vacancy. It's not something to wait until you kind of feel you're in dire straits. This is something you could do at any time and is good to do regularly. To be thinking about what some of the skills and experience and knowledge that your particular charity does need from its trustee board. And then to perhaps do a skills audit, to look at your existing board and say, well, what are these skills and experience and knowledge have we already got on the board? And then, of course, what that allows you to do is identify any gaps that you might have. As you're thinking about what those skills and that experience might be, it might be knowledge or experience of your charity's particular field of work. For example, it might be a knowledge of counselling services or housing services, and that particular area of the charity's work. It might be specific skills and experience, whether it's in finance or safeguarding or risk or governance. It might be that you're looking for particular behavior or qualities to be in place, a particular commitment to the charity's purpose and values, that ability to be able to participate with discussions because of a real sense of kind of passion for what the charity is doing. It might be that you're looking for trustees to have a particular knowledge or experience of the communities or local areas where the charity is serving. It might be that you'd love to have trustees with a sense of lived experience, that they have been through kind of what many of your beneficiaries are experiencing, or what you're seeking to help as a charity. It might be that it's a real advantage to you to have users of your charity services who are on the trustee board to give that insight in terms of what beneficiaries need or what users need. And so have a little think through that. What is it in an ideal world that your board needs? What do you already have? And then what are some of those gaps? And I just want to make a little point here, which is slightly portrayed by the photo that you can see on screen. Beware of an over-reliance on one or two super trustees. And what I mean by that is this. I don't consider myself a super trustee at all. However, I do have quite particular and developed over many years charity finance skills and insights. The danger there is on any board that I sit on is that everyone turns around and says, well, if Ed's okay with that finance thing, then we're okay with it. And that is a dangerous place to sit. Similarly, it might be that you're thinking, oh, we could really do with a lawyer on our board. We really need legal skills because, gosh, if we've got a lawyer on our board, we get all kinds of free legal advice and all the help that we need at the time we need it. In reality, taking legal advice from a voluntary trustee for everything you do is a very, very bad idea, because you're relying on the work of one trustee rather than collectively making a decision. The wonderful thing about lawyers is they think in legal ways. They think in particular ways. They've got particular skills that are going to be a real advantage to your charity. They're going to help you know when we need to take advice. But if we're not careful, if we rely on trustees with particular expertise, solely on that expertise, then we could get into difficulty. Because just a reminder, as trustees, we are collectively responsible for the charity, as well as carrying that individual responsibility. That under law, there's no individual trustees that have a particular automatic extra legal duties or powers. That the trustees together need to work together collectively to make collective decisions and to be equally responsible. They might have particular areas they lead on and particular expertise they bring, but that expertise is about helping the trustees make a good collective decision. Is it just about skills? Is it just about the abilities that charity trustees can bring? And the big question in this guidance is, have you considered the mix of backgrounds or perspectives on your trustee board? In reality, diversity helps a board to consider issues from a wider range of viewpoints. It avoids this kind of like, oh, this is elephant in the room and nobody's thinking about it, because everyone's got this kind of blind spot about kind of the way we should do things. Having diversity means you can stay connected with your stakeholders and stay relevant in terms of the work the charity does. When I say the word diversity, let's not just be thinking about skin color and gender. That's often the first two things we think about when we think about diversity. In reality, it's a whole range of factors about someone's life experience and the characteristics that they bring and the perspective they bring. If we just recruit people that are like us, we are going to run our charities in suboptimal ways. How can we? I know many boards who are desperate to increase their diversity and just don't know how. And I just want to. This guidance suggests some possible strategies for this. One is force the issue by introducing term limits on trustees. Bring that kind of freshness into things. When you know that the board has to be refreshed, there'll be new ideas and new perspectives. There'll be you'll be in a situation where there's not like an individual that ends up being really, really dominant for years and years and years and years, because it can't be that. You'll end up probably having a mix of lots of experience and new people around. Advertise widely. If we just kind of ask people we know, then we're going to get lots of people who are like us. Advertise widely, and then remove barriers for people being involved. That might look like thinking very carefully about the time and place of your trustee meetings to maximize participation. It might be making sure your governing document allows you to hold remote meetings if that widens participation. To make sure you're clear that trustees could claim reasonable expenses for their participation in trustee meetings. To make sure that you make reasonable adjustments for those who need it, whether it's in translation or sign language or something like that, to enable people to participate. And then this is a quote from the guidance. Only ask for previous board experience if you're sure that you need it. Only ask for previous board experience if you're sure that you need it, which is a very helpful thing. It's very helpful to write a trustee role description. That will really help you as you're recruiting trustees. It might include these kind of things. And I want to draw your attention to this resource, reachvolunteering.org.uk. There are some sample trustee role descriptions there, and also a whole bunch of really, really helpful resources around trustee recruitment. Do have a look at that. I did spot on their website that they are migrating to a new platform over the weekend. So the moment we send this out, it might actually be unavailable for a day or two. So just watch out for that. But do have a little look at some of those role descriptions. Do have a little think about how you advertise. There are lots of resources and ideas available that from the guidance. We'll send this guidance out in our post-event mailing. Don't just rely on word of mouth. Don't just rely on informal relationships. Don't just approach people from your own kind of sphere of influence. Don't just use personal connections. The guidance encourages us to advertise and to advertise widely. It also includes some really helpful tips on what that advertisement could include and how helpfully you can inspire people about the work of your charity and the difference the charity makes, and make being a trustee sound like a really, really attractive thing to get involved in your charity. And then just on this, just a little point here. If you're advertising and you're assessing candidates, whether through an interview or more informally than that, let's make sure that every single candidate, whether or not they end up being a trustee of our charity, let's make sure they have a positive experience from beginning to end of your process. Because the reason is this: even if they're not suitable for your charity, even if they're not matched well to your charity, you want them to have a great experience of charities, and to be someone who then goes to another charity and said, I would love to be a trustee of this charity. So let's help one another out in that way. Before a trustee is appointed, there's certain checks that you should be undertaking. You should be undertaking eligibility checks. For age, for example, you've got to be over 16 to be a trustee of a CIO, an unincorporated charity, over 18 for an unincorporated charity. You need to check that trustees are not disqualified from acting as trustees. Well, one, do ask them to make a declaration, but also there are registers that you can check as well. Do check out the guidance of whether a DBS check is either necessary or even possible. It's a complicated area, but not every role is eligible for a DBS check, but do have a little look at, in your particular charity's context, whether that's necessary. Do think about taking references and then understanding what conflicts of interest you might potentially be introducing by appointing this trustee. Ensure that they have an understanding of what they're signing up to before they sign up to it. CC3 is all about trustee legal responsibilities. Make sure they understand what the charity is all about and what they're doing and what the governing document provisions are, and then help them to understand that they are equally responsible with all the other trustees for collective decision making, that they're not acting with a particular kind of personal prejudice or viewpoint. They might bring something of that to the table, but actually they are there to represent the best interests of the charity. Make sure when you're appointing trustees that you're following any provisions in your governing document to appoint them validly, and make sure you're notifying the Charity Commission through your My Charity Commission account. And if you're a charitable company, make sure you're notifying Companies House of their appointment as a director. I do also think about whether you need to be updating bank mandates or other things like that. And then finally, induction is a vital part, of course, of recruiting trustees. And it's absolutely true that a team effort works best. Get all of your trustees involved in bringing new members on board. Do inform trustees all about your charity. Perhaps put together a little information pack. There's a little list of helpful things within the guidance that talks about, for example, a copy of the governing document, a copy of the accounts, documents that set out any kind of plans and priorities for the time ahead and any key policies, perhaps recent minutes from trustee meetings. But don't just give them a whole lot of information to read through. Introduce them to people. Have a little, if you've got charity premises, have a little walk around, say hello to staff, say hello to people, what's good, say hello to some beneficiaries, get them to introduce them to actually faces and names. And then do include them. Have a little think about how can we, in our context, review how we operate as a board to make sure that this person can be included and to participate fully. That's a really important thing to do. And then finally, before I finish, don't just do this at the start. Have a little chance to kind of review with that new trustee on an ongoing basis how they're finding it and how they're getting on. One thing that I find particularly helpful is asking new trustees this question a few months in. What struck you as really strange when you started? What struck you as really strange? Because the reality is, as trustees on the board, we're all now part of the furniture. We kind of do things in a particular way and we're used to it. But actually what we really want to do is learn from people who have fresh pair of eyes. What about the way in which this charity operates? What in the way in which this board relates to one another and communicates and makes decisions? What struck you as strange when you started? Because we really need to listen to that point of view. And I'd encourage you to keep asking trustees that question, and especially those that are new to the board. Just finally, we just want to let you know that on Monday, the 3rd of November, between 5 and 6:30 in the evening, Burton Suite are holding, supported by RBC Brew and Dolphin, a free Trustees Week reception at St George's in Bristol. There's a QR code there. We'll also send a link out in the post-event mailing. But we would love you to join us. It has been the case in the past that we at that event have had an opportunity to introduce people who really want to become a trustee with organisations who really want a new trustee, and that's been a wonderful thing. But this is a fantastic way to celebrate the incredibly significant and vital work that charity trustees do. There'll be a chance to have a glass of wine or soft drink and some canapes, and just to be able to meet lots of other trustees in the same boat as you, and to celebrate the sector together. So we'd encourage you to sign up for it's important to sign up, but sign up for your free place as soon as you can, Monday the 3rd of November in St George's in Bristol. And with that, I'm going to say thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us. And I'm going to hand straight over to you as you lead us through these important considerations for charities with venues or holding events. Rachel, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Rachel Barfoot. I work for Delegated Services Community Interest Company. We provide support to the charity and education sectors and have been doing that since 2012. The work that we deliver is around health, safety and compliance, safeguarding, risk and emergency management, leadership and wellbeing support, estates and energy management, training and resources. Sorry, Ed, can we go on to the next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. All our staff have years of experience and have worked at a senior level in other organisations, and we work also with a network of supporting professionals and experts. I won't read through the services that we offer now, but you will get the slides, and please do have a read through and see if there's anything that we can support you with. Next, please. So the terrorism threat level in the UK is currently reported as substantial. That is, that an attack is likely. In 2023, the counter-terrorism strategy contest describes risk as enduring and evolving. And by 2023, the larger scale operations had mainly gone underground because they were successfully being intercepted in high numbers. And so the best way for the terrorists to change their strategy was to very much go underground and encourage individuals to attack. There's a growth in radicalisation of individuals. And this really highlights the importance of the prevent duty in your safeguarding policies. We do safeguarding audits as an organisation, and we're finding that in most of the charities we've been into, the prevent duty has not been fully incorporated or embraced as an organisation, and we've had to red flag that as an area to address. Terrorism attacks are no longer in predictable locations. Of the 37 intercepted, 50% were in rural locations, which is surprising. And the greatest terror threats in the UK, which are not classified, have been identified as cyber attacks, letter and bin bombs, chemical and biological attacks, and ramming vehicles into crowds or buildings. Next, please. So the Terrorism Protection of Premises Act 2025 Martin's Law was named Martin's Law in memory of Martin Hecht, who was a victim of the 2017 Manchester Arena bombing and whose mother, Vagan Murray, tirelessly campaigned for the law to be passed. The new law will improve protective security and organisational preparedness across the UK by requiring those that are responsible for certain premises and events to consider how they would respond to a terrorist attack. It's actually a preparedness duty because we can't prevent a terrorist attack, but we can respond to reduce harm. Royal assent was reached on the 3rd of April 2025, and organisations have to implement the requirements by April 2027, so that's a 24-month period. And that also allows the government to establish the function of the Security Industry Agents Authority for premises owners. So the full guidance has not yet been published. They're still clarifying certain points. Interestingly, there are quite a few points that relate to our sectors and have not yet been clarified. It's been designed to be easy to implement and not requiring professional input. So, but the government may need to make sure that everybody can implement the requirements of it. So the focus of the bill is the terrorism attack. But politicians had amended the original proposals to get it through quickly, but it hasn't addressed the other categories, and the police have identified 3 areas that also need addressing. So first of all, in the area of autism, in Southport, 11 girls were stabbed and 3 murdered at the Taylor Swift dance party by a 17-year-old. The second is people with severe mental health. In Nottingham, 2 students and a caretaker were murdered on the streets. And then the third category are those people who are murder obsessed, where in Luton, a loner killed his mother and siblings before setting off to commit mass murder at a former primary school, but were seen by police and looking suspicious. And there is evidence that there are a lot more potential attacks in category 3, and that's what the police are most concerned about. Although there are similar handling responses, these are not being considered in legislation because they needed to get the legislation moving. But all these circumstances do need to be considered when you're doing your emergency planning for your charity. So Martin's Law, what's in scope? A qualifying premises which is likely to have 200 to 799 people present at more than one time. And a qualifying event is one that has 800 or more people present at any one time. But morally, how are you going to respond to this if you are responsible for less than 200 people? Are not 180, 100, 50, 20 equally important? And how could you justify if you had an attack not preparing if that attack had occurred? There are 2 tiers of responsibility. The first is standard, 200 to 799 people, and the second is enhanced, 800 or more people. Early years organisations, primary, secondary schools, further education premises and places of worship have all been classed in the standard tier regardless of capacity. So a qualifying premises is one which is accessible to the public, where there is at least one building or the premises are in a building, like a shop inside a shopping centre. The premises are wholly or mainly used for one or more of the purposes specified at Schedule 1, which I'll go through in a moment. It's reasonable to expect that at least 200 individuals may be present at least occasionally, and the premises are not excluded under Schedule 2 of the Act. The qualifying premises are those that are wholly or mainly used for one or more of the following purposes. So food, drink and retail, museums and galleries, visitor attractions, sports ground, places of worship, healthcare, education, leisure and entertainment. And we're assuming that youth clubs, community centres, service delivery and advice hubs also fit into that category, but that may need clarification. Premises which are not qualifying under Schedule 2 are parliamentary buildings, parks and open air recreation grounds, which has caused a lot of discussion, and the thing that has been most widely discussed, and then transport premises already subject to existing legislative security requirements such as airports, national rail and underground. So a qualifying event will take place at a premises which is land and or buildings, including land without buildings, that are not an enhanced duty premises or part of an enhanced duty premises. It's reasonable to expect that there will be at least 800 individuals present for the event, at least one at some point during it. The relevant premises are accessible to members of the public for the purposes of the event, and there will be measures to check entry conditions are met, such as tickets, membership, passes, guests, etc. In the event that it's not excluded under Schedule 2, i.e. not a park, garden, a parliamentary building, a place of worship, transport hub, etc. Ed, sorry, can we move on? So how would you assess how many individuals are really expected to be present? Well, seating capacity is very helpful because that's obvious, it's the number of seats, but standing is more challenging. Therefore, we potentially suggest the fire safety capacity, which should be stated in the risk assessment and the fire risk assessment. Another way of calculating that would be through the HM government's publication, Fire Risk Safety Assessment, Small and Medium Places of Assembly, which you can Google, and it actually sets out the calculation of for fire safety of how many people you can have in a room. So you might use that to aid your assessment. You could look at the maximum attendance attached to a license, for example, if it states that in a public entertainment license. You could have a ticket only or pre-registration event, which is properly managed, for example, timed tickets to stagger entry. You could look at historical data, what numbers of people have attended in the past at your venue or others, comparable data, what number of people do similar events attract, or look at the circumstances, look at the weather and competition on that day. So if you're the only indoor event going on that weekend or that day on a wet day, you potentially could have more people attending. You need to count staff and volunteers in that number as well. So what do you have to do? You have to establish, first of all, whether you're in scope or not, and at what level you are. And then you need to appoint a responsible person or persons, or it could be the organisation, and inform the Security Industry Authority and follow any of their requirements. We haven't seen those yet. You need to carry out a risk assessment, and at an enhanced level, that of course will be a lot more detailed. Then you need to put in emergency procedures and communications, which you've probably already got. The evacuation, evacuation, and lockdown. Actually, evacuation has been very much designed around terrorist and similar attacks, and maybe a new one to your organisation. You need to put safety measures in place at an enhanced level, such as barriers, CCTV, etc., if you've been classed as enhanced. And then you need to communicate your risk assessment and procedures to all the relevant parties, train your staff and volunteers, and then practice for different scenarios to demonstrate the effectiveness of training. And we actually, as DS, we actually run scenario planning events where we put senior managers in a live situation and then throw in different scenarios and look at the premises and how to respond, which is very interesting. It really flushes out the things that haven't been thought through. We also recommend that you join an information forum or shared best practice and resources, etc. We will be keeping organisations updated through our free community newsletter if you want to sign up to that. But we need to wait for guidance to find out further. It does say that anything required of an organisation will be appropriate, reasonable and practicable, which you may be familiar with already, obviously looking at accessibility buildings, equalities legislation, health and safety, etc. It's the same kind of application. So who is the responsible person in control of the premises or event? For a qualifying premises, the person with control of the premises is the person who will be responsible. Where there is more than one use in Schedule 1, so for example, a church that also has a creche, it will be the person in control of the premises in connection, whichever Schedule 1 is the principal use. And then in multi-let premises, responsibilities may need to be coordinated between landlords and tenants. For a qualifying event, this is the person or entity who has control of the premises where the event will be held for the duration of that event. The circumstances of the event will need to be considered, and responsibilities cannot be delegated to contractors such as security companies or ticketers. So, just in case you're not convinced about the attention to detail that this bill needs as a new area, there'll be a new regulatory function which will be established with the Security Industry Authority, and they will seek to support, advise and guide those responsible persons for events to meet the requirements of the legislation. Where there are instances of serious or persistent non-compliance, the SIA will be able to take enforcement action, including compliance notices, monetary penalties and restriction notices. The legislation also includes some criminal offences, fines and prison, with a maximum of 2-year prison sentence, and no defence that somebody failed to do something in your plans. You are responsible for fully checking through every detail in place. I have got a couple of more slides which will go out with the mailing, but I just wanted to stop there so that we've got time for questions at the end. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Josh.
Thank you, Rachel. And yeah, for what you've shared with us and the importance of it. We do know, as somebody's pointed out in the chat, that there has actually been an incident earlier today in Manchester on a very sort of special day for those with the Jewish faith. So yeah, I know that me and Ed will hold those involved personally in our prayers, but yeah, also our thoughts together as a group, I think, too. So thank you, Rachel, for your input to the future for charities here. I'll take a bit of a right turn here, and we're just going to look at we sent out, in fact, an email newsletter that sort of talked about some of these changes, but they are quite important, so we thought we'd address it in person as well about the Companies House change, that everybody understands that this change is to do with ID documents and it's to do only for charitable companies, or indeed companies that are not charities. It does not therefore affect all trustees, so it wouldn't affect the charities of a charitable incorporated organization, which is a CIO, or unincorporated charities. This only affects the trustees or directors and company secretaries, potentially, of charitable companies. So what is the change? As part of the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act, Companies House is introducing a new identity verification process for anyone setting up, running, owning, or controlling a company, or indeed a charitable company in the UK. So this comes in from the 18th of November 2025, and identity verification will be required for any new or existing charitable company directors, any new or existing company secretaries, any new or existing people with significant control, or indeed people who file on a charitable company's behalf, perhaps taking a bit of an unofficial company secretary role there. Please do note that, as Ed mentioned earlier, trustees of a charitable company are called directors for the purpose of company law. So every director is a trustee, and all the trustees would also be directors. So generally, the directors or trustees will only need to verify their identity once, unless otherwise instructed by Companies House. Once successfully verified, the director will receive a Companies House personal code, unique to them, but not unique to your charity. This will be needed for Companies House filing purposes, such as confirmation statements. Failing to verify will mean that you cannot make any filings or start a new company or charity or entity. Trustees could consequently be prohibited from acting as directors and therefore trustees. Incurring penalties in this way could negatively affect your charity's reputation by deterring donors and grant makers. So next slide, please. So how to verify? If you are a trustee or director of a charitable company, then you can verify your identity using the gov.uk One login. This is free of charge. Number two, so sort of through the gov.uk One login, you can select to do some of the ID verification at a post office, where they can conduct a face-to-face check for you. But yeah, just be aware that you've got to start that process online before then going to the post office and doing the ID check bit with them. You could use a third-party provider in association with ourselves for a fee of £50 plus VAT for each individual that you do. This is due to the fact that there are authorized corporate service providers that are qualified to undertake anti-money laundering supervised activities. And should you choose this method of verification, we will need to initiate this process for you. If you'd like to talk it through or have some guidance, you could come to us directly, scheduling a meeting with us in the office with one of our team for the cost of their hourly rate. And then we can guide you through one of the processes 1 to 3 above and just help you get there if you don't feel confident verifying independently. A good idea that Ed and I have sort of talked about a little bit is perhaps you could bring this as a section or part of a trustee meeting coming up, that you could say, let's all get together, bring ID documentation along. You might need your phone, in fact, to do some of the process, and do what you can in, say, a 10 or 15 minute slot together. And if there are people who still are struggling, then hopefully you can give each other the support to get there as a group. I've had a look at the list of ID accepted, and it is different for the different methods that I've described there. The ones that they're sort of leaning towards are sort of biometric options, your UK passport, UK driving license, but there are a couple of other options, but not very many other options. The list is fairly short, so do have a look. We'll send a link through in the post-event mailing, and you can have a look and work out what you want to do yourselves. But if you do have any questions or would like assistance, do get in touch with us. Thank you. Ed.
Thanks so much, Josh. I wonder whether people on the call have been through this process or not to verify their identity. I've done it, and it was kind of okay, but I can kind of understand that how some people might find it a little bit more challenging with apps and holding your phone on top of your passport and all this kind of stuff. It's certainly worth giving it a go yourself, but it's something to be thinking about. Josh has already said it, but it's so important. I'm going to say it again because we get lots and lots of queries about this. This is only relevant for charitable companies or companies that are not charities. It is not relevant for CIOs, charitable incorporated organizations. This is not relevant for you, so there's no need for you to act on this particular thing. Just saying that again for good measure, because I know that's a very common query that comes up. Just finally, before questions, it's our kind of latest news roundup corner, and we could, I mean, in the last few months, you could pretty much call it the charity SORP corner, because it's always just kind of giving you an update of where we are on things. I mean, firstly, just to say, we ambitiously in our pre-event invite talked about giving you an update on the outcome of the financial thresholds consultation, which is all about the audit thresholds and the accounts preparation thresholds and the thresholds at which you register to be a charity, etc., etc. With much excitement, we were looking forward to reporting back on you, because they promised the outcome of this consultation 4 weeks ago, and we've not yet seen it. So watch this space for that. That's really disappointing, to be honest, not to have that outcome yet, but we look forward to sharing that outcome with you. However, the charity SORP consultation, the charity statement of recommended practice, how many charities need to be preparing their accounts. There's a new SORP on the horizon, as we've mentioned a few times. And that consultation finished also a few weeks ago. And we're expecting the final SORP to be published in October. Now, I must admit, my own view is it'd probably like to be the 31st of October rather than the 2nd or 3rd of October, but do watch out for that. But the charity SORP making body, I mean, they're such a tease. They're just such a tease. They're just kind of whetting our appetite, and they've actually issued a bit of an article sort of saying what some of their reflections on the consultation were. So just very briefly for your for your enjoyment, really. They said that 150 individuals and organizations responded to the consultation, and they were grateful for those responses. And they wanted to just give a bit of reflection on some of the key issues that were raised. They were pleased that people who responded were really keen on the tiering idea. In other words, not the tiering I'm upset about the charity SORP idea, the tiering as in different sizes of charities have different requirements. And so people thought tiering was a great idea, but no one really felt that the thresholds were set at the right levels. So I think we just need to wait and see whether those thresholds might actually be different levels. And I certainly hope they are myself. They talked a bit about the trustees' annual report and the fact that respondents were really supportive of some of the kind of extra things that need to go in there, some of the helpful prompt questions that there were to enable people to better include content, some of the encouragement for sustainability reporting and to talk more about reserves and to have kind of enhanced reserves disclosures. And so lots of people were very keen on that, but also lots of people saying they were concerned about the burden that many of these requirements placed on the smallest charities. And that was a key theme, I think, running through many people's responses, is really, does this serve small charities in a helpful way? And in that vein, one of the key bits of feedback that everyone gave, this is just a hint of what this feedback is at the moment, that everybody said, my goodness me, there's these modules on lease accounting and income recognition. They're far too technical and they're not very clear. So it'll be interesting to see in the final draft how they addressed some of that complaint. A lot of it can't be changed, I think, but it's just very interesting to get a glimpse that they're hearing that feedback and they're acknowledging that feedback. So again, watch this space. Do bear in mind that our next charity catch up on the 27th of November will be a charity SORP special where we'll dedicate the entire time talking about the confirmed changes to the SORP. So I really hope it does arrive in October, otherwise we're going to have to push it on again. But we're looking forward to hearing more about that. But thank you so much for listening. We're going to take a moment now to address any questions that you have.